Hello and welcome back to another episode of Math with Son. Today we're going to be writing exponential functions given 2 points. So you would have to be told that this is write an exponential function. 2 points don't by themselves make it exponential. You would have to be told this is exponential. You're going to be using this formula, y equals a r to the x. The a does not have to be capitalized. And it can be changed, like these letters are changeable. The a is the y-intercept, so hopefully you'll be provided a y-intercept. In this case, 0, 3 is the y-intercept because the y-intercept occurs when x is equal to 0. But we are also going to be plugging in this x and this y value into the equation to solve for the r. So I'm going to plug in the 3 for x. This x is 3 right here, and the 375 for y. From here, you have to just solve for r. You would divide by 3, divide by 3. 125 would equal r to the third power. And then in order to get rid of the r to the third power, you just cube root. You cube root, and you get r by itself. Well, the cube root of 125 is 5. So we got r. R is the most important value because without r, you could not write the exponential function. But that is not the answer. Your answer is when you go back to this original equation, you plug in your y-intercept, 3, and you plug in the r value of 5. So this, when you plug in your y-intercept and your r, are going to be your official answer. Okay? I got 2 more examples for you. Each one is completely different, so I would highly recommend you watch them. So, here, big difference with it being a negative value there. We're going to still use the same formula, y equals a r to the x power. We're still going to plug in the 7 for the y-intercept. We're going to plug in the x value of negative 2 and the y value of 28. So the y value is 28. The x value is negative 2. That negative 2 is the big difference. From here, you can still divide by 7. If we divide by 7 and divide by 7, 4 would equal r to the negative 2 power. If you have it to the negative 2 power, my big recommendation is to peel off the negative because you can't really square root with a negative very easily. So I would recommend doing r to the negative 1 squared. Not the only way you could do it, but that is my recommendation. I'll show you the other way in a second. Now we can square root. We can square root both sides and get the square root of 4 is equal to r to the negative 1 power. 2 would equal, what's r to the negative 1 power? R to the negative 1 power is 1 over r. And how are we going to solve this problem? Well, you could put a 1 underneath here and then just cross multiply. If we cross multiply, we get 2r is equal to 1 times 1, which is 1. Which means r is equal to 1/2. Okay? So now we have the r value, and we would be able to get y equals 7 1/2 to the x power. Okay, so this peeling off the negative, that's one option. And that's not the only option. You could do it differently. So let's say you don't like that peeling off thing, which, to be honest, the more I'm doing it, the more I'm not liking it. You could, instead of dealing with the r to the negative 2 power, you could get rid of it right off the bat, but you would need a calculator to maybe be able to figure it out in our head. So if we have r to the negative 2 power, you can cancel that by raising it to the negative 1/2. Because negative 2 times negative 1/2 is you want to raise it to the flip, and you would just flip these two. So negative 2 over 1, raise it to the negative 1 over 2, and on the other side, you would raise it to the negative 1 over 2 as well. And in your calculator, if you type in 4 to the negative 1 over 2, you get 1/2. So you can get there a little quicker, but you would have to have a little more intuition with recognizing if it's raised to the negative 2 over 1, you have to flip the fraction and raise it to the negative 1 over 2. Okay? So that one's a little weird. It doesn't happen very often, though. I got to be honest. It doesn't happen very often. We got one more. This one more is way different. It is much harder because you're not provided with your y-intercept. So if you're not given a y-intercept, you have to pretend that the smaller x value is the y-intercept, okay, for a while. So y equals 4r to the x power. We're pretending that the 4, oopsies, way off, excuse me, y equals 2r to the x power. We're pretending that the 2 is the y-intercept for now. So this has been, see when we had a 7 here, that was where we put the 7. If we don't have that, we're going to pretend that the 2 is it for now. So we're pretending that this is the y-intercept. We are going to be careful when we plug in the other things. Okay? So we're going to be careful. We are going to plug in 16 for the y value. We are going to be solving for r, but we have to be careful because if this is the y-intercept, if we started, quote unquote, at 4, how far have I moved over to get to 7? And the answer to that is only 3. So if this was the y-intercept, we would have to kind of subtract these both by 4, and this would be an x value of 3, not 7. So we plug in a 3 here. This is a trick. It's a very valuable trick, though. Divide by 2. 8 would equal r to the third power. Cube root of 8 would equal r, which happens to equal 2. Okay? So we have our r value. That's important. And we now have essentially an equation. It's not a great equation, though, because remember, we faked that y-intercept. So what we need to do now is forget that we used that. We reused that y-intercept, quote unquote. It's not really the y-intercept, just to get it. We do have the r value. We really don't know what the y-intercept is, but we can use the same process to solve for the y-intercept. After you get this r, you neglect everything that you just did. We're no longer faking. We are now going to use the r that we just found, plugged in, and solve for the y-intercept using either one of these 2 points. So I'm going to use the 4, 2. Yeah, I'll use the 4, 2. 2 for y, a, 2 for the radius, not radius, r, and then we plug in a 4 for x. So 2 to the 4th power, that's a number. 2 equals a. 2 to the 4th power is 16. Divide by 16, and you would get the a is equal to 2 over 16, or 1/8 is equal to a. Now ask yourself if that kind of makes sense, okay? So first off, let's write the equation. 1/8 2 to the x power would be the final equation because we now have our official y-intercept. Ask yourself if that makes sense. So see what the rate is, the ratio is. It's multiplying by 2. So if we multiplied this y value by 2, if we took 4, 2 and multiplied by 2, we would end up with 5, 4, and then 6, 8, and then 7, 16, multiplying the y values by 2. All right, so that makes sense that we got to 7, 16. If we backtracked, we would get 3, 1 dividing by 2, 4, 1/2 dividing by, 2, 1/2 dividing by 2, 1, 1/4 dividing by 2, and then lastly 0, 1/8 dividing by 2, which also proves an interesting point here, that you sometimes don't have to do any of this algebra, that you could just kind of fake it until you get the right value for r and the right value for the y-intercept as well. But that's going to do it for this one. This last problem happens very rarely. It's more of a college level question, but it does happen every once in a while in some Algebra 2 honors and pre-calculus level material. I will see y'all in the next one. I hope you stay positive. Bye.